So about 4 years ago, I was playing on my PlayStation 4 and I got bored with what I was doing. I don't remember what exactly. I don't think I was even gaming. I think I was just watching YouTube, but I got tired of it. I wanted to listen to music. I went there, and I think at the time I was listening to Weezer, Kiss, some of those bands. I I I just got bored. I just didn't want to do the same old thing. So I went to my Discover Weekly playlist that Spotify provided for me. Anyone who uses Spotify knows that Discover Weekly isn't the best playlist. It usually never is because Spotify's algorithm for providing new music to you is usually not great. And I've only ever discovered maybe three or four songs from Discover Weekly that I actually really liked and discovered new bands that way. But outside of that, that's like usually not the case. Um, now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't written my script that it was Discover Weekly, but I'm starting to think now it was Release Radar. I think I was specifically looking for music that came out at the time. I remember one song in particular, apart from the one I'm going to be talking about, but just kind of putting myself back in that mindset. I think one of the songs I discovered that day was there was the drummer of Blondie was doing a kind of an all star band project with a few other guys, and I discovered a song that they did that day, and that was one of the few gems I found. And that's why I'm starting to think it was Release Radar because that was a brand new song at the time. So yeah, I think it was Release Radar. But either way, I discovered a new song by a band I never heard of. I had no connection to or anything called the Knee Highs. Um, and the song was called Darling Darling. Now, I did a little digging and I realized that this was the band's very first song that they ever released. And I thought, that's really fucking cool. I we all have wished that we were there at the beginning of all our favorite bands, origins. You know, it'd be really cool to be in 1980s LA to experience Motley Crue before they put out Too Fast for Love, or be there in London when Queen was coming together, when they were still Smile, or being around when Weezer was playing with Keanu Reeves' band. We all long to be a part of those legendary moments that define music history. And unfortunately for a lot of us, we kind of just missed that window. So I thought it'd be really cool to follow a brand new band. So I followed them for the next 4 years, and I became a huge fan. I'm a big Knee High supporter. I've always loved the band since I first discovered them, pretty much when they first came onto the scene. And I wanted to take a moment to showcase this band to a wider audience that may have never heard of them, because quite frankly, I think they deserve more recognition as they work really hard to do what they do. And I think while they're really happy with the fan base they've grown over the last 4 years, I think they deserve more. They're very much a hardworking do it yourself band, and I think that they deserve more attention. Now, before I go into talking about this band, I want to acknowledge my channel a little bit. So I stepped away for a little while. College just got really busy. I started focusing on other things. And I kind of noticed that I started gaining a little bit more traction in the time I was gone. I gained a lot more subscribers. I don't remember what I was at before I stepped away, but it was certainly not the 500 subscribers that I do have. Now, while it's not much, it's more than I had. And clearly people liked the content that I put out previously. enough that they like the concept that they want to see more, that they subscribed. Now, I want to acknowledge too that those videos I made, while they're not great, I was getting better at doing them, and I kind of wish I stuck with it. And so I wanted to come back. I've been thinking about it for the last week or two. I was writing up a script for a Motley Crue video, which I will still work on. I do want to make a Motley Crue video, and later down the line, a Metallica video. But I think that I want to do this video more because I think it could turn into something in the future, and I kind of want to get your guys' opinion on it. But I think an indie band showcase would be really cool. And I there's a lot of bands that I've seen over the last year, and I think that there's some bands in there that I want to showcase. And so let me know if that's something that's interesting, and if this format works, we'll definitely do it. But with all that being said, let's talk about the Knee Highs. So the Knee Highs are a Chicago-based band consisting of 4 core members: Devin Chrisman on bass, Alice Strider on guitar, Ashley Gokin on guitar, and Chris Gokin, aka Chris Luck, on drums. So, from what I know, a lot of the information I will be sharing here is not necessarily documented. It's more just what I've observed and what I can tell from their social media and all that, because this is not a very well documented band. You kind of just have to follow them to just know this information, which is plays into why I want to talk about it more, because I want more documented information about this band to be out there. But anyway, from what I recognize, this band had been put together prior to 2020, because it seems like everyone involved have been really good friends for a while. Ashley and Chris, obviously being siblings, it seemed like everyone knew each other, and so they've been playing before the release of Darling Dong. Obviously, I mean, when you listen to that song, they're so tight and how they recorded that. There's no way that they hadn't been playing for a while. There's a lot going on here in terms of influences. From what I've gathered, they're very much punk based. They, from what I've noticed on their set list, they like to cover Blitzkrieg Bop. Alice, I'm pretty sure, has stated that she's a big Joe Strummer fan. So by extension, The Clash is a big influence. I can't imagine that they're not fans of the Sex Pistols. I'm sure it's an influence that they also carry. I know on occasion, Chris has showed her love for artists like Elvis. And honestly, just the whole aesthetic and feel and sound is giving Blondie. So they're very much punk influenced. Now, in terms of sound, it's definitely a little different. It has a lot of good punk energy, but it has a very good classic rock sound with a vintage filter over it. And it's very nice. It's very easy to listen to, very easy to pick up. And when you watch their shows, they do that very classic punk rock thing where the studio recording doesn't really tell the whole tale of what the band actually is like. You know, when you watch the Ramones, you know, a lot of those songs are played very fast, but when you watch them live, it's the electricity is turned on, the switch is flipped. They're playing twice as fast. And that's kind of how the Knee Highs are. They play with so much energy. The stage and the fans definitely give them a different kind of adrenaline because their stage presence is awesome. They're super cool. Go watch any video of them playing live. Super crazy band. Now, in terms of sound in general, like I've mentioned, I think for me the biggest takeaway is they sound like Blondie. If you listen to Blondie's debut album, that album it's punk in nature. In terms of production, in terms of energy, it's punk. And a lot of those songs sound very vintage, almost older than when it came out. Like when you listen to In the Flesh, that's probably the best example I could think of. because In the Flesh is another stripped down ballad, and Darling Darling is giving tones of In the Flesh where it's stripped down and a lot more slower, but it's so vintage sounding that it's kind of hard to ignore how vintage it sounds. It's very 50s R&B, which I think is really cool. And that's kind of the same tone and feel and structure of In the Flesh. And so I think the Blondie tones are very much present in their sound, especially like when you listen to songs like off their first album, it's giving Plastic Letters. If you listen to any of those classic Blondie albums, it kind of reminds me of that. Very much you can hear the clean guitars along with the driving drum beats with beautiful vocals all around. And I think their harmonization is the big thing that sets them apart. Super elite in how they put themselves together. They're also super DIY. They do everything by themselves. They do all the recording independently, and then they get outside producers to mix and master. But they do all the recording in house. It's very cool to see their recording process sometimes. They make a lot of their own clothes, which is really cool. That's something I've kind of admired the most, and something I've wanted to do after seeing this band. The way that they make their own outfits and everything is extremely fascinating, and how they get these ideas. I just want to see the inspiration sometimes. I just want to see the photos they looked at to get these ideas. So they also make their own CDs and merchandise and all that, which is really cool. I personally own a silk screen printed knee-highs t-shirt, which is really cool because I'm pretty sure, I can't recall, I think they all have a hand in making those t-shirts. So I know Alice is like probably one of the main ones who works on that. And it's really cool to have band merchandise that not only is of an indie band, but they made it themselves, you know. And one of the cooler things is they in the box they stuck a hand signed note card, just kind of appreciating that I bought the thing. I was like, that's so interesting, because a lot of bands just don't do stuff like that anymore. And that for me was the moment I really like locked in and wanted to follow this band and give them the utmost support, because they gave the fans a lot of support too. They gave the fans a reason to be there, and so that DIY energy is just really cool. That's the kind of thing that I've tried to take on when I look at my own projects. It's like Glenn Danzig in the early days of the Misfits, where he made all of this stuff for the Misfits, like the t-shirts, you know, the Plan 9 skateboards, or he even had his own record label where he can make his own records. It was just DIY, and that's why the fans loved the Misfits. It was so underground, but anyone in Jersey at the time was fascinated by this band because, for one, they would give you all this free shit all the time, and it was all handmade, and it was all super quality. I mean, of course, they use the cheapest, you know, the worst t-shirts they can find for cheap, but it was a product that will last. You know, the screen printing is a pretty healthy way to have a long-lasting t-shirt. It will last for a while. And so that energy from both this band and the Misfits kind of taught me a lot on taking care of your fans. And so that's another really cool way in how they've maintained such a stable fan base over the years. So now I want to take a look back at the original topic at hand, because for any band and artist, the most important part of them is the work they put out. So let's take a look at the music. So as I've mentioned, in 2021, they released their debut single, Darlin' Darlin'. The nice, really good slow ballad. I really enjoyed it. It's pretty good. I think the production is really nice. It sounds rough at times, but it plays into their favor. It's not a negative. And then they followed that up with their 2021 single, Action. This for a while was one of my favorites until they had a music video come out, which it appeared on their next album, but the song wasn't available to fans for a while. You can only watch the music video. Now, this song would later appear on their first album called Charmed, which I believe was also released in 2021. Charmed is a pretty good debut album and features my favorite song. Well, for a while was my favorite song, which was called Make You Mine. It is such a fun song. It's about it's a love song from the perspective of a psycho stalker girl who is just after this guy, even though she is going at ridiculous lengths to get this guy's attention, and he quite frankly almost doesn't want any of it. It's awesome. It's such a fun song. I get giddy thinking about it. And fun little fact, my band, I think, last year we were gonna release some music, and there's only one recording was ever finished of that project. I kind of hope the recording still exists, and I want to get back to that someday. But we were gonna cover "Make You Mine," and we did record a lot for it, and it was joyous to not only learn these songs when there's not a single tab or anything in existence. I don't even think lyric sheets. Oh, well, I think there was a lyric sheet on Spotify for that, but that just wasn't available. So it was really fun learning that song. And I hope we can put that product out someday because it was so cool. It was so fun recording it, and I loved every bit about playing it. I think the only thing we never recorded for it was drums, and I think I was unhappy with some of the vocal delivery per se. I think that's something I didn't like when recording it. But anyway, getting back to it. This album also featured songs such as the previously mentioned Action and Darling Darling, What a Way to Die, Teenage Kicks. It's an all-around fun album. I highly recommend it. It's a great debut, and I'm pretty sure that they're working on another album, and I hope that gets to come out because the progression of what they've done over the years is great. But anyway, the next year they released a song called A Better Way. And for me, that song is probably my favorite. Oh, I'm forgetting something. They released their single Beauty Queen right before A Better Way. I don't remember much. I remember they marketed Beauty Queen a lot, and they worked really hard on promoting that one. A Better Way, though, I remember the hype behind that song because I remember they released a teaser on their Instagram, and they all shared it on their personals, and I remember like immediately like being hit with the thought that this is easily their best song, and that wasn't to knock them. It was, wow, they actually made like a pretty elite song here, and they only released like, I don't know, 10 seconds of it. And so I patiently waited until I was on my instrumental band tour for college, and we were on the bus, and I remember looking at my Instagram, and I seen that it was released. I was like, oh my god. So I went to my Spotify and I listened to it. I looked at my fellow bandmate who was further back in the bus. I showed it to her. It was so cool, like experiencing the release of that song because it's so elite. And I still use that song so much. It was for the first show my band played. A Better Way was like, it was in the countdown playlist of songs before we went on, and I just love that song so much. And I think if there's a song to take away outside of Darling Darling, this is their best song. Anyway, In 2024, they would release Crush, their Crush EP, and this the first EP they dropped, and it features 3 songs. And the main song, written by Chris, is the main song to take away, and it's actually a pretty solid song. I really enjoyed it when it came out. Not it didn't beat A Better Way for me. I just love that song so much, but Crush is still a great EP. I still await any project that they want to drop in the future. I'm pretty certain that they got something cooking. It feels like they've been grinding a lot lately, and there's kind of been some anticipation for another album. We need it. We need another album, and so I hope we get to see that very soon. I hope we get to see it announcing at least. But anyway, kind of wrapping it up, I want to talk about where they are right now. Chris and Ashley have kind of taken a step away. Nothing negative. They're all still great friends. Chris moved to California, which Chicago and California are not exactly next door. They're quite a bit of ways from each other. So that just kind of makes it impossible to work. You can't rehearse that way. So it's fine, you know. Chris was always my favorite at the time because I mean drummers idolize other drummers. It just works that way. I remember the first time playing "Make You Mine" on drums. It's such a good beat, and it's so fun. I like the way that the tempo drives up as the song goes on. It's so cool. And Ashley also kind of took a step away, and I believe that they're working on their career outside of music. Very valid reasons. It makes sense. So what we're left with is Ashley and Devin, who still lead this band to this day. They're still leading tours and playing one-off shows here and there. And it seems like they're still very dedicated to the band that they helped created, which is very nice to see. It makes me so glad that even though we lost some core members of this band, that they're not gonna just let it fizzle out. They worked so hard to build that up, and I'm so happy that they're not just letting it go away. So shout out to them, and shout out to everyone involved. Other than that, I really want to see them live so bad, because you look at their Instagram and you see all the pictures they post. They're crazy. They're a once in a lifetime band. I've always called them the Ramones of our time, not because they sound or are like the Ramones, but they have that energy. They have that they have that anti-establishment, that we're not going to take it attitude, and they're the real deal. They're living it out how they want to, and that's exactly what rock and roll needs. That's exactly what rock and roll needs. Outside of that, there was not much more to say. They're the most charming band I've ever seen, more so than almost any other band that I love. Even outside of goofy Weezer, they're somehow the most charming band I've ever had the pleasure of finding. I hope that they become more available to the Midwest, because I wish I could go see them. They had a show in Minnesota I almost went to go see with Kangaroo Court, and I didn't go, but I wanted to so bad. So I hope in the future they come out this way more often. They mainly like to play in California and more far off places where I really don't feel that I can go, but we'll see. I feel like we still got a lot more time to go see them. Other than that, wonderful band. I if any of them see this, I just want to say, like, you guys are great, fucking awesome. Keep it up and keep grinding. And I hope someday I get to have an actual fan interaction with you guys. I mean, I can always step up to play Make You Mine. I can always step up to play anything, anytime. But rounding it out, I will make more videos in my free time, because I got plenty of it, and so look forward to any new content. I think the next video might be another indie showcase, just because they're a little bit easier. And quite frankly, I think that this is a more fun content style to do. I don't know how to explain it, but when I end up having to research other bands and do all this other stuff, I kind of start losing the passion for it. But when I start talking about bands that I've seen or, I know outside of the upper echelon of what we know as popular bands, I get a little bit more passionate when I talk about it, and there's a lot more freedom for me to just talk and yap instead of reading off the script 100% of the way through. I do plan to make a Motley Crue video. I have that working on at the moment, and so that script is being written. So we got some content to look forward to. I think the next band I want to look at is Silly Goose, and that is a great band to look at. So we're gonna catch you guys on the flip. Yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything, always comment. But yeah, thanks for watching, and thanks to everyone who has watched the videos and subscribed in the last 4 or 5 months. You guys are real ones. Bye bye.